I am Vera, 34 years old, and today my world came crashing down at what should have been Mom's most joyful celebration. 5 years ago, I walked away from my promising career as a digital marketing director in downtown Seattle to care for my grieving mother after Dad's sudden heart attack. Today is her 72nd birthday, and I spent weeks planning the perfect party. But during the toast, my older brother Jake stood up with that familiar smirk and dropped a bombshell. "Time to pack your bags, sis. This house is going on the market." Everyone cheered while my heart shattered into a million pieces. Let me take you back to where this all began. Our family has always been complicated, but I never imagined it would lead to this moment of betrayal. My mother, Dorothy, now 72, spent 42 years as a beloved elementary school teacher in Tacoma, Washington. Dad was her college sweetheart, a Boeing engineer who helped design aircraft that soared across American skies. When he collapsed in the driveway from a massive coronary 6 years ago, part of Mom died with him. I was 29 then, riding high as a marketing director for a tech startup in Seattle's booming South Lake Union district. My Capitol Hill apartment had panoramic views of Puget Sound, and my life buzzed with client presentations, networking events, and a promising relationship with a software architect named Connor. Everything changed with one devastating phone call from Jake. "Mom's not handling Dad's death well," Jake said, his voice distant through the phone. "She's not eating, barely leaves the house, and the place is falling apart. Someone needs to check on her regularly." Jake, my eldest sibling at 42, epitomizes success by every American measure. As a senior vice president at a major investment bank in Portland, he lives in a sprawling McMansion in West Lynn with his trophy wife Brittany and their 2 picture-perfect children. He drives a Tesla Model S, vacations in Napa Valley twice a year, and never misses a chance to flaunt his achievements. But visiting Mom more than holidays? Apparently too much to ask. My sister Amanda, 39, relocated to Denver with her husband Brett and their 3 kids after landing a position at a prestigious private academy. Like Jake, she rarely comes home and calls Mom maybe once a month if we're lucky. Their excuse remains constant. They're busy building their own lives, their own families. I was the only one without those anchors, so the burden naturally fell to me. I took what was meant to be temporary family leave, packed a few suitcases, and moved back into my childhood bedroom in Mom's cozy craftsman bungalow in Tacoma's North End. What began as a 3-month commitment became permanent when I realized Mom needed far more than occasional check-ins. Her grief had accelerated aging, and subtle signs of memory issues were emerging. Nothing alarming initially, just moments of confusion and forgetfulness that worried me. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I resigned my position, ended things with Connor, who refused to consider relocating, and dedicated myself completely to Mom's care. The family home, a beautiful 1920s craftsman that belonged to Mom's parents, became my world to manage. Every corner held precious memories. The kitchen where Mom taught me to make her famous apple cinnamon pancakes, the backyard where Dad built our elaborate treehouse, the living room where we gathered for Thanksgiving celebrations. Little did I know that forces were already aligning against me. 2 years ago, Mom met Margaret at her cardiologist's office. Margaret was a nurse practitioner at the Tacoma Heart Institute. 52 years old, divorced, no children of her own. Their relationship moved with surprising speed, and within 8 months, they were married in a small ceremony at the courthouse. I wanted to be optimistic, hoping Margaret would restore some joy to Mom's life after years of grief. Initially, Margaret seemed like a blessing. She prepared nutritious meals for Mom, accompanied her to medical appointments, and encouraged her to join the Tacoma Senior Community Center's book club. But something about Margaret always felt calculated to me. The way she'd study our family photos with appraising eyes, how she'd casually mention property values in our historic North End neighborhood, her pointed comments about my temporary living situation. Jake and Amanda embraced Margaret immediately, perhaps seeing an opportunity to finally shed their guilt. "See, Mom's doing great now. She has Margaret," Jake told me during one of his infrequent visits. "You can finally get back to your real life." But I couldn't abandon Mom. She still experienced difficult days alongside the good ones. Her rheumatoid arthritis made navigating stairs challenging. Her diabetes required careful monitoring, and occasional episodes of confusion persisted, especially during stressful periods. Meanwhile, my relationships with Jake and Amanda deteriorated rapidly. They criticized my caregiving choices from their distant cities, questioning Mom's medications, her doctors, even the organic meals I carefully prepared. Yet their own involvement remained limited to brief holiday visits and sporadic phone calls. "You're wasting your prime years," Jake would lecture. "You're hiding from reality by playing nurse," Amanda would add. "It's unhealthy to sacrifice your future like this. Mom wouldn't want this for you." But they never offered genuine solutions. Never volunteered to take Mom for extended periods. Never suggested shared caregiving arrangements. Criticism was easier than actual help. Uncle Ray, Dad's younger brother from Spokane, became my sole family ally. Living 4 hours away, he visited whenever possible and called Mom faithfully twice weekly. Ray understood my sacrifice and defended it passionately to Jake and Amanda during heated family discussions. "Your sister made a choice you two were too selfish to make," he declared during one particularly tense conference call. "Instead of judging Vera, you should be thanking her daily." That comment created an even deeper rift, making subsequent family gatherings uncomfortable affairs filled with unspoken resentments. As for Margaret, her attitude toward me shifted dramatically once her honeymoon phase with Mom concluded. She began questioning my continued presence, suggesting I was interfering with their marriage. When Mom couldn't hear, she'd make cutting remarks. "Isn't it embarrassing to be your age with no career, no relationship, living with your mother? Or Dorothy and I would have more privacy if you found your own apartment." I maintained civility for Mom's sake, but it became increasingly difficult as I noticed Margaret's behavior changing when others weren't present. Around Jake and Amanda, she was the devoted wife and caring healthcare professional. Around me, her mask occasionally slipped, revealing something much more calculating. Still I stayed. This house represented more than shelter. It was Mom's inheritance from her immigrant parents, the physical embodiment of our family's American dream. I had no idea that Margaret and Jake were already plotting behind closed doors. For Mom's 72nd birthday, I was determined to create something magical. This milestone deserved a celebration that would light up her eyes and remind her of happier times. I spent 2 full weeks orchestrating every detail, wanting everything to be absolutely perfect. The menu required meticulous planning. Mom's favorite meal had always been prime rib with Yorkshire pudding, a recipe passed down from her English grandmother. I practiced the entire dinner 3 times, determined to get the timing perfect. The birthday cake was another challenge. A 3-layer lemon cake with cream cheese frosting, made from Mom's handwritten recipe card stained with decades of loving use. For decorations, I created a memory wall spanning 7 decades of Mom's remarkable life. I found boxes of photographs in the attic, carefully selecting the most meaningful moments. Her college graduation, wedding day with Dad, each of our births, family vacations to Yellowstone and the Oregon coast, her retirement party from Lincoln Elementary. I arranged them chronologically in elegant silver frames, creating a visual journey through a life well lived. The guest list proved most challenging. My relationship with Jake and Amanda had grown increasingly strained over recent months, with Jake barely returning calls and Amanda communicating primarily through terse text messages. Still, I reached out, emphasizing how much this meant to Mom. "It's her 72nd birthday," I pleaded with Jake over the phone. "Your presence would mean everything to her." "We'll see if our schedules permit," he replied coldly, his tone suggesting major inconvenience. "By the way, has Mom updated her estate planning since marrying Margaret? We should discuss inheritance matters soon." My conversation with Amanda followed similar patterns, her main concern being whether Jake would attend and if there'd be family discussions about Mom's assets. Their reactions left me deeply unsettled, but I pushed those feelings aside. This celebration was about Mom, not family tensions. Margaret's behavior during party preparations was equally troubling. She insisted on inviting several of her own acquaintances whom Mom barely knew, including someone she described vaguely as a business consultant. When I suggested keeping the gathering intimate with close family and Mom's longtime friends, she accused me of being controlling. "This is my home too now," Margaret reminded me sharply. "Dorothy is my wife. I deserve input on our guest list." Most disturbing were Margaret's increasingly frequent private meetings with Jake. Twice in the month preceding the birthday, Jake visited while Mom was at physical therapy. He and Margaret would huddle at the kitchen table, speaking in whispers, spreading documents that were hastily collected whenever I appeared. "Just reviewing some healthcare options for your mother," Margaret would explain with strained smiles. "Jake has excellent industry connections." But I caught glimpses of what appeared to be real estate brochures and property assessment forms before they were shuffled away. Something significant was happening behind my back, though without concrete evidence, I could only remain vigilant. I confided my growing concerns to Uncle Ray during one of our private phone conversations. Ray had been battling prostate cancer earlier in the year, making it unlikely he could attend the party. "Keep your eyes wide open, Vera," Ray advised when I described the secret meetings. "I don't trust Margaret's motives, and Jake has always been too focused on money." The party was set, but I had no idea I was walking into an ambush. The morning of Mom's birthday dawned crisp and clear, with autumn sunlight streaming through the windows of our craftsman home. I woke early to handle final preparations, arranging fresh dahlias from our garden and putting finishing touches on the 3-layer lemon cake. Mom came downstairs around 8:30, wearing the new lavender cardigan I'd bought her for the occasion. "You look absolutely beautiful, Mom," I said, adjusting her pearl necklace, a gift from Dad on their 25th anniversary. "I slept wonderfully," she replied with a smile that momentarily erased the tired lines from her face. "Margaret gave me something special to help me rest. Said I needed to be fresh for today's celebration." That comment triggered a flicker of concern, but I pushed it aside. Today was about joy, not suspicion. Margaret appeared shortly after, dressed in an expensive-looking burgundy dress I'd never seen before. She fussed over Mom, straightening her cardigan and smoothing her hair, playing the devoted wife for all to see. Yet something calculating flickered in her eyes, a barely contained excitement that seemed disproportionate for a simple family gathering. "I've invited a few additional guests," Margaret announced as I set the dining table with Mom's finest china. "Hope that won't be a problem." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Jake and Brittany arrived first, conspicuously without their children despite my specific invitation including them. Mom adored her grandchildren and rarely saw them. "The kids had other commitments," Jake explained dismissively when Mom asked. He carried a small gift bag that looked hastily assembled, tissue paper protruding haphazardly. Amanda and Brett followed shortly after, also child-free. Amanda gave Mom a perfunctory hug before immediately gravitating toward Jake for whispered conversation in the living room corner. Mom's dearest friends, George and Helen Martinez from down the street, arrived bearing homemade sourdough bread and genuine smiles. They'd known our family for 30 years, had watched us children grow up, and truly cared about Mom's well-being. Their presence provided comfort amid the strange undercurrents I was sensing. The most unsettling arrival was a sharp-dressed man in his 50s whom Margaret introduced simply as Frank, a dear friend. He carried a leather briefcase and had the polished appearance of a successful businessman. When I asked how he knew Margaret, his response was deliberately vague. "Through mutual connections in the healthcare industry." The party progressed with surface-level pleasantries as we shared dinner at our family table, Mom seated in her customary spot at the head. She seemed in good spirits, though occasionally confused about conversation details. Twice she called Helen by my grandmother's name, something that had never happened before. After the main course, I presented the memory album I'd carefully assembled. Mom's eyes sparkled as she turned pages, decades of memories flooding back. "Look at this picture from Mount Rainier," she exclaimed, pointing to a faded photograph from 25 years ago. "Your father was so worried about bears." Remember that, children. Jake and Amanda barely glanced at the album, exchanging meaningful looks I couldn't interpret. Margaret kept checking her watch as if expecting something. When time came for cake, I brought out my masterpiece decorated with delicate sugar flowers. Candles were lit, songs were sung, and for a precious moment, everything felt wonderfully normal. Then Jake stood, tapping his glass with a spoon. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. The room fell completely silent as Jake commanded attention, his voice carrying an undercurrent of triumph that made my skin crawl. "I'd like to make a toast to our incredible mother," he began, his cold eyes briefly meeting mine with unmistakable satisfaction. "Mom, you've given us everything over the years. Your wisdom, your unconditional love, your unwavering support. Today we want to give something back to you. A fresh beginning." He paused dramatically, reaching into his jacket pocket to produce a folded legal document. My stomach lurched as pieces began falling into place. As many of you know, this house has become too much for Mom to manage safely. The stairs, the maintenance costs, the property taxes in this gentrifying neighborhood. Margaret has expressed serious concerns about Mom's well-being here, and after careful family consultation, we've reached an important decision. My heart pounded as Jake unfolded the papers with theatrical flourish. Mom has signed power of attorney documents naming me as her primary decision-maker, and we've decided it's time to sell this house and move her to Cascade Manor, a luxury-assisted living community with comprehensive medical care and social activities. He turned to face me directly, his smile predatory and triumphant. "So Vera," his voice dripped with false sympathy, "time to pack your bags, sis. This house is going on the market next week." The room erupted in applause and raised glasses. Margaret beamed, clinging possessively to Mom's arm. Amanda nodded approvingly. Frank opened his briefcase, revealing stacks of real estate contracts and property assessments. I looked desperately at Mom, expecting protest, confusion, anger, anything. Instead, I saw only bewilderment in her eyes, as if she couldn't quite process what was happening around her. "But what about our trip to Victoria?" Mom asked, her voice small and lost. "Vera said we were going to see the Butchart Gardens like Dad and I did on our honeymoon." Jake laughed dismissively, the sound cruel and cutting. "Mom, you're in no condition for travel. Vera has been filling your head with unrealistic fantasies. Cascade Manor has beautiful gardens too, plus round-the-clock medical supervision." Margaret chimed in, her voice sickeningly sweet. "We're doing this because we love you, darling. Vera can visit you anytime at Cascade Manor. It's really what's best for everyone." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. They had orchestrated this ambush on Mom's birthday, using her celebration as cover for their calculated scheme. Everyone was acting as if destroying her connection to this house, her sanctuary, her link to Dad and decades of memories, was cause for celebration rather than devastating theft. George and Helen looked deeply uncomfortable, exchanging worried glances. They understood how much this house meant to Mom, how it connected her to Dad and to a lifetime of cherished memories. "The market conditions are exceptional right now," Frank was saying, spreading contracts across the table where Mom's birthday cake sat half-eaten. "We could list by Monday and likely have multiple offers within days. This neighborhood has seen tremendous appreciation." I couldn't bear another second. My chest felt tight, my vision blurring with unshed tears of rage and heartbreak. Without a word, I stood and walked out the front door into the cool Seattle evening air. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and made the call I'd been hoping would never be necessary. "David, it's happening exactly like we feared. I need you here now." "David, it's happening exactly like we feared," I whispered into my phone, my voice shaking with controlled fury. "I need you here immediately." David Coleman had been my closest friend since our undergraduate days at University of Washington. We met in a business ethics course, ironically enough, and maintained our friendship even when our careers diverged. While I pursued marketing, he became a specialist in elder law and estate planning. When I first noticed Margaret's suspicious behavior months earlier, David was my first call for guidance. "They can't simply sell the house out from under you," David assured me now, his voice steady and professional through the phone. "Not if we've done our preparation correctly. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Uncle Ray is already driving down from Spokane with Dr. Peterson." I leaned against our front porch railing, trying to steady my breathing. This devastating moment hadn't come as a complete surprise. In fact, I'd been preparing for exactly this scenario for nearly 8 months. It started with small, troubling incidents. Margaret accidentally hiding Mom's reading glasses before important medical appointments. Maintenance workers appearing unexpectedly when neither Mom nor I had scheduled them. Mom becoming unusually drowsy and confused after Margaret prepared her evening chamomile tea. Her increasing disorientation about basic facts that would mysteriously clear up whenever Margaret visited her sister in Portland for weekends. One evening I found Margaret in our kitchen after midnight, transferring pills between different bottles. When she spotted me, she quickly concealed everything, claiming she was organizing Dorothy's medications for easier management. The next morning, I examined Mom's pill organizer and discovered different tablets than her doctor had prescribed. I secretly took one to a pharmacist friend who identified it as a powerful sedative not on any of Mom's medication lists. That discovery crystallized my suspicions into certainty. Margaret was deliberately drugging my mother, likely to make her more compliant and confused. Easier to manipulate and control. Around the same time, Jake's visits became more frequent, always when Mom was at physical therapy or napping. He and Margaret would huddle secretively over documents, speaking in hushed tones. Once I overheard fragments: power of attorney, property assessment, and split the proceeds. Most damning was discovering an old text message thread on Mom's phone when I was helping her with an app update. Messages between Margaret and Jake dating back 4 years, long before she supposedly met Mom randomly at the cardiology clinic. In one exchange, Jake had written, "Found perfect target. Widow, valuable property. Daughter living with her could be problematic. Will arrange introduction." Margaret replied, "Daughter can be handled. Set up the meeting and I'll take care of the rest." They had targeted Mom deliberately. Margaret was never a chance encounter. She was planted by Jake as part of a calculated scheme to gain control of our family home. When I showed these messages to Mom during one of her clearer moments, she was devastated but struggled to accept the reality. "Margaret loves me," she insisted. "Jake is my son. They wouldn't deceive me like this." Her denial was heartbreaking but understandable, especially as Margaret's medication tampering had progressed to the point where Mom experienced more confused days than lucid ones. That's when I reached out to Uncle Ray for help. Ray had been quietly building our defense, and now it was time to strike back. Uncle Ray emerged from his car with Dr. Peterson, a renowned geriatric psychiatrist, while David strode up our front walkway carrying his leather briefcase. Despite his obvious fatigue from cancer treatments, Ray's face was set with steely determination. "Ready to end this charade?" Ray asked, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. Together we walked back into the house where Jake was mid-sentence, apparently explaining escrow procedures. Frank was arranging glossy Cascade Manor brochures on our coffee table, while Margaret stood possessively behind Mom's chair. "The paperwork stops right here," I announced, my voice stronger than I'd expected. "Mom is not selling this house, and she's definitely not moving to any facility." Jake laughed dismissively. "Too late, little sister. The documents are signed. Power of attorney gives me legal authority to make Mom's care decisions." David stepped forward, introducing himself as my attorney. "Actually, we have substantial evidence of medication tampering, including video recordings and pharmaceutical analysis. Mrs. Henderson has been substituting Dorothy's prescribed medications with unprescribed sedatives for at least 6 months." Margaret's confident facade cracked slightly. "These are outrageous accusations. Harold, tell them how devoted I've been to your care." "Because you've been drugged, Mom," I said gently. Remember how clear-headed you felt when Margaret visited Portland last month? That's because you were taking your actual prescribed medications. Before anyone could respond, I pulled out my phone and displayed the recovered text messages between Margaret and Jake from 4 years earlier. Would you call this random? I asked, reading aloud. Found perfect target. Widow, valuable property. And Margaret's response. Set up the meeting and I'll take care of the rest. Amanda gasped, grabbing my phone to read the messages herself. Oh my God, Jake, please tell me this isn't real. Dr. Peterson stepped forward professionally. Mrs. Martinez, with your permission, I'd like to take a blood sample to test for unprescribed medications in your system. Mom nodded slowly, beginning to understand the gravity of the situation. Margaret objected frantically. This is unnecessary harassment. As her wife, I don't consent to invasive medical procedures. Fortunately, David interjected smoothly, your consent isn't required. Dorothy executed a healthcare proxy 6 months ago, naming Ray and Vera as her medical decision-makers. This document supersedes any power of attorney Jake claims to have. Frank, the real estate agent, was hastily packing his materials. I was told this was a straightforward family decision. If there are legal complications, I cannot proceed with any property listing. The blood test results, processed within hours through Dr. Peterson's connections, confirmed unprescribed sedatives in Mom's system. Combined with our video evidence and the incriminating text messages, this provided overwhelming proof of elder abuse. Margaret accepted a plea bargain rather than face trial, probation, community service, and a permanent restraining order. Her marriage to Mom was annulled on fraud grounds. Jake faced financial elder abuse charges and lost his banking licenses. 6 months later, Mom's cognitive abilities have returned dramatically now that she's properly medicated. We took that delayed trip to Victoria, watching sunrise over the Butchart Gardens where she and Dad had walked as newlyweds 45 years ago. Sometimes, Mom said as we sat by the fountain, the family we fight for is worth more than the one we're born into. Our house remains our sanctuary, filled with more joy than it's known in years. Sometimes one phone call can save everything that matters.